Alright, let's finally tackle properly Deus.
About time.
Well, the entire dungeon is actually called Deus.
Yeah.
Probably
By
because
the
it's
way,
just part of him.
The
But
plot
mind
twist-
you, it's
the plot twist
basically
is
just
I
the
have a
ruins of
wife.
Merkava. Alright, let me explain something very quickly, as it's also mentioned. Hold on, because I think it's also mentioned. The mapping of the inside of Deus is now complete. Okay, let's go, everyone. See, here's the
great.
thing.
He's back to the
This
top
is
of his
basically
phone.
your map for the first section. Know where you're. Do you get from this where you're supposed to go?
No.
Well, tough shit. Try any of the actual appendages until you get the correct one. Again, you asked me a couple of parts. Also, for the record, in case anyone wonders about the music, this is World Revolution from Chrono Trigger. Thought it was appropriate. You asked me a couple of parts ago, Jova, what was my favorite dungeon, and I guess I can find the answer in the form of the Ave Castle, the Bled Ave Castle infiltration, while play as the Torment, because you're engaging it is, and now still big variety and non-linear, thankfully that particular dungeon is. But if you want the worst dungeon in the game, there you go.
Oh boy!
And this is just the first layer. This is basically it is meant to be, not necessarily a gauntlet, but more of a labyrinthine section where enemies constantly attack you. On that, and a couple of them love to just try to drain your fuel, just so we can be more of a nuisance on that front. But otherwise. They're actually good for doing experience, but otherwise the real challenge is actually to find properly the exit. Mind you, there are good rewards in this, but at the same time it's kind of a chore to actually, walk into it. Alright, for the time being, let's jump into this to reach the second layer.
Whoa! Avoid the lasers.
What is this? A Sonic, modern falling sequence?
Actually, I thought you were going to reference more so actually the sequence from Spider-Man: Edge of Time.
That one is more inspired by God of War than anything. I feel this particular way it's done, it feels a lot more like a Knights Over the Head section.
Can someone quote Tales from? Can someone quote Can someone quote the Tales from Sonic Heroes, please?
I won.
There we go.
Alright,
welcome instead to the second layer. This is even worse than before. You still do have a map in this. If I calculate, I'm gonna show it just right now.
Well, I mean, to be fair, he is the final villain. He's not gonna want to make it easy for heroes to find him.
I do not mind that, Dweebs. And hold on, go ahead, Pedro.
Hey, over there.
To get into that giant hole, yes.
I believe we must go through that gate to get to the lower floor.
Well, Bill, it's not like there's any other places we can go, so yeah, might as well.
Well done. Let's give Billy abyss over there.
Let's give Billy the captain obvious.
I'm not entirely confident that an attempt at the abyss is a good idea.
All right,
so is this your end?
Sorry, go on do that.
Is this your end game team?
Basically, but again, like I said, Billy is good on his own, and Cheetan, despite not having that much abilities in a gear, is also busted. But anyway, again, it's this kind of labyrinthine section where in the second layer there are in the second part there are two layers, one up and one down, and they are divided in some sort of islands that are connected via these particular tubes. As such, you need to understand which tube leads to which specific location. It's not even a case of, they're so randomized and like the magic doors from that bootleg Lion King video game. But it's still a pain in the ass, mostly because of the type of enemies that you find. Mind you, the game is merciful enough to not give you random encounters in that particular section, the main hub with its different islands, quote unquote. So you need to worry about only when you are in the tunnels. But again, finding actually the correct place is a pain in the ass, because in order to unlock the way towards the giant hole, you need to activate, if I recall correctly, 2 specific buttons that change the layout of the final dungeon, meaning that you have to track back and forward in different places, making sure that you have, pressed the correct switch, and then getting to the end of it. Again, even as someone who likes, potentially brutal challenges, this is just more annoying, and I can fully believe it was more of a case where developers really were running out of time, so they just decided to scramble with what they had. But a sentiment that I will repeat towards at the end of the part: if this game gets to be released in some kind of fashion, I want any kind of quality of life improvements to this specific one, like a better navigation potentially, a better, saying where these witches are potentially, or even a speed boost.
Encounters.
That's I would just prefer a slider similar to the Bravely games, because that way it can literally please anyone, those who just don't want encounters at all, but those who want them to reduce, because at the end of the day, for an RPG, you still need the challenge factor of, fighting enemies, upgrading yourself, and that. So if you remove that, the next logical solution is, well, put also an on and off switch for invincibility, which at that point turns off the entire point of what the game was supposed to be. And even if it was like a bad game to begin with, I understand that. Or in a case of Overture, again, for instance, Chrono Cross recently had an turn off enemy encounter rate, but because of the way the game is programmed, where you technically cannot grind that much, and outside of having level cap being raised after boss fight, having to encounter enemy in between, boss fight after you grinded enough, was admittedly kind of pointless unless you just wanted to go through and have, that kind of challenge of reaching the boss not in peak condition. So in that kind of sense, turning off the enemy encounters makes sense to me, But otherwise, there have to be either unlockables after you beat the game properly, or at least something that you have to earn for instead of being given you on a silver platter. I mean if the game is good, because again, I do believe it kind of destroys potentially any merit that the game had, and sort of implicitly admitting that, well, the game was not enjoyable, if you didn't do this. But again, I don't want to divulge into that. But what I want to mean specifically with that is, for this specific dungeon, I just want it to be improved if the game gets released. This cannot be a simple job like the Legend of Mana remaster, where it was good looking and everything, but it did nothing to actually fix potentially the core problems of the game in terms of being backtracking and keeping potential track of your quest lines.
Like, let me put it like this: this game,
here's another one.
When it does do something good, it can do it pretty great. But however, when it drops the ball, it really does drop the ball. Also, do those lasers even hurt you?
Yes, they do give, again, there you go. They do give you a minimal fixed amount of damage. The good news is that right before the boss fight, the final boss gauntlet, we will get instead our Johnny, a repair shop, which again will allow us to be in top conditions. And
how did he sneak onto this ship?
Might as
I
well.
don't know. And yeah, we're back in that place of Merkava where we were a couple of parts ago, where we fought, the Amphisbena and then the Opiumorph, which makes sense considering it was the place where Deus awakened. So
either that, or they just really wanted to symbolic.
Go ahead, Pedro.
Well, might as well go with the follow-up plan since we were just went for another one. What a wild ride!
Where's the dialogue?
We're going in a second. Also, let me mention something quickly, Jova. As I will showcase immediately, but here's also a bit of a trapping. Save at this point if you're not careful, potentially, because if you talk to shopkeeper Johnny, he actually gives you the option potentially to exit the dungeon if you're unfinished stuff. However, it does not have a confirmation prompt. So if you just select the option. It looks like this shop connects to the outside. If you actually select the option from his catalog, there you go. character items, gear items, or go outside. If you just select that, you immediately get ported outside instead of actually requesting you like a confirmation, which usually games tend to do, mind you.
Over again.
I don't even know why they didn't put it there, because it was Deus instead was a thing that was very prevalent in games also around this time. So I don't know, did they just forgot to do that?
So basically, if you did not save there, you'd be boned.
Well, or anyway, at least you have to go through the entire of it.
And that's no fun.
No.
Hey, adventurers! You know that you know how at the end of every game there's a conveniently placed shop so you can make some last-minute shopping. Well, this is that shop.
Thanks,
Basically,
Bruce.
it's literally that. All right, now.
Oh yeah, that's what Sticker Truth was making fun of too. Exactly.
Now time to actually.
Actually, I thought you were referencing Bruce Campbell.
No, South Park: The Stick of Truth. Now it's time to actually get back to the place where Deus was, and if I recall correctly, jumping into that the hole that the cocoon left, in order to defeat. There you go. Yes, let's go.
I came all the way here to not jump in.
I mean, you can still do it if you want to, wait and do other side stuff.
It's in case you want to go back and do some stuff before.
This is Deus? What the fuck am I even looking at?
What are those 4 orbs spinning around it?
Lips?
That means it's supporting the center.
Is it now? So that means that big thing in the middle is the core of Deus? Oh my god, I had a line!
Everyone has.
Probably.
Who cares about those orbs? Let's just crush the core.
Bart, come on.
Striking directly at the center rather than using fuel unnecessarily. That is one strategy, but I believe another plan of attack would be to defeat its surroundings first.
Fuck the surroundings!
If we decide to attack the supporting orbs first, then it might be wise to leave the battles up to us. We should be able to do something about them without using up phase power.
You want to take over for this, Pedro?
Allow him to use the full power of Xenogears. After all, with those Xenogears, he will do Deus's wonders.
I guess.
To defeat Deus, and yes, of course, to save Alex, or God if you prefer.
Whatever we do, whether we do a direct strike to the core or take down the supports first, I guess that is best left up to Faye.
Thanks, everyone. To attack Deus directly or to take out its supports first. I wonder which is best.
Neither, let's just go home.
But yeah, here's the thing: you can actually select your party members, so you can actually spare the burden of the others in order to take down. And you really should, because these 4 mini bosses are tough of their own, and each of them possesses a special technique. Like in this case, Sandal. A special technique that, if not defeated, Deus will use when you actually confront. So, by chipping away these 4 around Deus and then confronting him directly... Hold on.
Hold on, Dex. Calm down.
He will actually be essentially crippled and will not be able to use his full amount of power. He will also lose a small amount of maximum HP, which is always appreciated. Anyway, in order to actually speed up, I use 2 teams. One that you will hear later, and this first one, which is one of the boss pieces. Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne, which, I mean, it's fitting considering most of the lyrics are repeating the phrase "one more god rejected." So. And again, like you said, this is also the moment where your entire party gets to shine. And again, in order to represent that, I used them. But here's the thing. Remember a lot of parts ago in Bart's hideout where I mentioned to buy 3 tank guards and hold them until the end of the game? This is why. Because one of these fuckers, as you will see, wants to spam a particular attack that drains your fuel by a large amount, and he keeps spamming this fucking glyph on the ground. So if you have the tank guard, you're completely actually safe from this. And again, like I just mentioned, if you don't defeat this guy, Deus will love to spam this move in actual final fight. So at least I would recommend to take down this guy. In general, confronting Deus without defeating the 4 angels is basically just a risky move if you really want a self-imposed challenge.
But the choice is there nonetheless.
I was just opening something, but since you asked, actually, I can say that no wonder those bright colours on the screen just before then, where you're going up, those are something.
Well, yeah, those are representation of the 4 mini bosses, Marlut, and of course all these 4 angels have names that reflect that. Like in this case, Marlut. We will get a more direct one, I think, in the fight after this. But again, in general, it's recommended that you strategize and use different party members, so you can then leave Faye and 2 others at full capacity for Deus. Again, even in dialogue, the game suggests you to do that. Also, the stupid thing about her loot was the fact that being a ground enemy, you could not actually use, Devlos skills from Gears, meaning that the fight also went on for a while.
So how long does tank guard last?
Oh, it's an accessory, always. There you go.
Excellent.
There you go. This is actually instead Metatron. This is the one where I say that it's kinda implied to be based, at least being potentially the Kaiser Sigmund, because one thing that I didn't really showcase much, but was present in the room, we saw also in the cutscene, is the fact that the Kaiser was apparently a fan of the music we saw with the organ, but he also had a metronome on one of his desks, and you can play a mini game about asserting correctly the timing of a metronome. This boss kind of resembles that, to be honest, so I kind of do wonder if they wanted to say something with that, but again, it's just left so ambiguous that it's literally everyone's guess. But yeah, Metatron is actually still more manageable. Again, out of the 4 angels, Harloot is the one that you really need to watch out for and potentially be prepared, otherwise you'll get fucked. Again, unless you actually have specific accessories that boost up the rate at which you actually replenish your fuel, your major concern should be just about to keep your fuel high. For HP, you just need the accessory that allow you to use the HP fixed frame, so you can easily recover any kind of damage that you get. But if you're actually low on fuel, you're basically in tough shit to begin with.
Sucks.
And yeah, this is the other track I didn't mention. This is the boss theme from World of Final Fantasy. I know what you're thinking. What the fuck is this doing here? There is a reason, but I will actually explain as the credits are rolling.
Memories from back when I used to fight,
It's not getting good.
Yes,
it's
actually.
fine, yeah. It's good.
Yeah.
Not perfect,
Again,
but good.
it's also the premiere of Josh Keaton actually as a mainline Final Fantasy character in terms of voice acting, and I was really wondering what took so long to actually get him into one of these.
Wow, really? It took him that long? Huh. All right.
Again, okay, it's a thing that happened more recent time, but even for a while when Square was actually still handling traditional like anime-based voice actors, like Sam Riegel and O'Brien and so on, they were not using all of them, in obvious manners. Like if they got Sam Riegel, it was morely for like a very supportive role, like Edward in the DS version of Final Fantasy IV, not as the main star instead. And again, George Keaton, maybe it was like one of the additional voices over the years for stuff like the 13 trilogy. I actually never checked. But when it came to actually having a more substantial role, yeah, he voices the main protagonist of the twins of
Lon.
Lon.
He's the one that does the Titus laugh, right?
Tidus laugh,
Yeah.
He references that, yeah.
Also, but again, in more recent time, Square has started to have, not necessarily an artsy movement, but more of a case of the American division of trying to instead hire actors who played characters on TV series rather than straight up voice actors. It's kind of interesting. And I don't mean for Final Fantasy 14 because that one had the British instead cast, which, is completely a thing on its own. I'm talking about generally. Mind you, 15 was more of an exception because the voice actors involved in that were more like the new generation of anime-based voice actors. Again, it is admittedly the game that launched ray tracing into being famous these days. But otherwise, stuff like, say, the new characters introduced in DCNT, like, say, Locke, Rinoa, or Kamlan Out, who did not have a voice actor before, they got, like, TV-based voice actors. Same goes for the 7 remake. But let's defeat Deus now.
Oh,
and again,
we're just plunging right in. No intro cutscene or anything.
No, this final form is kind of cool. There were different concepts they showed post at the very end as the Arc of Day, which were supposed to be slightly more fucked up. A couple of them resembled the traditional god fused with a machine, stuff that you would think is something like, say, System Shock, But this is still a good alternative. The fight is kind of not a bit of a bitch, mostly because these two angels that Deus spawns at the beginning of a fight constantly counterattack every time you do perform an attack on Deus. Not to mention some of the animations tend to be a bit long. So even when Deus is effectively riddled from the special attacks of the angels, it's still a fight that takes quite a bit. Also, Billy is lit. Well, it actually was. So yeah, the main strategy is essentially have Faye being your main beater, the other two being basically the supporters. I wouldn't recommend Chuchu for this fight because as much as I say that she's still useful in combat, I don't think she's on par with actually in terms of tier managing in order to manage even the HP recovery of your characters. So you might as well deal two high damage dealers like Cheetan and Billy, yes?
Whereas a lot of people evolve over the time of the game, Chuchu's one of the ones that stays a bit more vanilla, essentially.
Not really. It's more of a case of lacking real major support skill. Like I said, she has the healing move, but other than that, not so much. And while, again, the damage output, she has the advantage of not using fuel and having the damage output, being based on her actual stats and not on the frame like the other gear because, she doesn't need to use one. Mm-hmm. But again, it's more of a case of tier ranking in terms of, how the character. By having a relatively large-sized party, this is thing that is bound to happen. But otherwise, the final boss fight is actually fine on its own. It just takes a while because of trying to be more of a spectacle, which I do understand. It's also reflected, in the background. Stained glass, floor and everything. Before it was cool. Sure, it's not trippy as with the fight against Sapphire Sephiroth in Final Fantasy 7, but it is still something. Ow. And yes, don't worry, audience. I have put a warning also during the editing to warn you also about this. Again, I don't actually know if this particular attack manages to actually be turned down thanks to that fan patch that I did mention a couple of parts ago. I hope so at the very least. But yeah, that's another thing that if the game is released, absolutely needs, tone down as much as they can, if not completely, this flashing.
Which is interesting because this came out after the Pokemon when it happened in that Pokemon episode.
You would be surprised, Waves. A lot of Japanese products still has it. Again, the Simpsons even made a fucking joke about that. I get the idea that, I think I mentioned this in the past, but I get the idea that maybe on an old CRT with a lower resolution, it wasn't as flashing as before, potentially. But I'm not entirely sure on that. But it must have been something that either they thought it was not too big of a deal, or that or there wasn't as impactful as it is today thanks to cleaner resolutions and everything. Because it went on for quite a long while, and sometimes it still happens.
I guess it's really about whether they just did it for the sake of a spectacle in that regards here and there too.
There's quite a lot of instances where where it's like I've seen like a lot of this stuff because of the time period, they didn't consider what it would look like on anything other than a CRT. So it results in a lot of this crap.
Yeah, this was back when analog TV was still...
I think it was last year. I think it was last year. So go on.
Sure, it'd be embarrassing if they still accidentally did stuff like this in the future, but nah, they would never do something like that.
No, it's the thing. That's the main reason why PS1 games had dithering, because it made them look smoother on a flat screen TV, like on a box TV. But you know, but when you try watch these games now on modern screens, yeah, it's very noticeable, and it's just why emulators have the ability to disable dithering.
And there's Billy who did the finishing job. Go on, Shira, sorry.
There's someone I follow on Twitter who has like a huge interest in old technology, particularly CRTs, and there's some stuff they just flat out refuse to watch or play on anything else because it just doesn't work.
Again, I think it was like last year, I think, Linkara reviewed an anime series, the pilot of an anime series called The King of Grayskull Gaigar, which is an anime back anime, and apparently during the scenes where it cuts back to the villain's base, because of like beams of light, there's constant flashing. Apparently, again, I haven't checked for myself the product, but I get the idea that it is literally just a case where, you know, it kept happening because they didn't thought it would be that damaging in the future. Alright, so we defeated Deus, the day saved, right?
No.
Come on, we obviously know this wasn't her final form.
What happened?
We still have a while left, so...
My gear won't budge anymore.
Hacks!
Oh my god, I had to... The Zohar modifier has ceased functioning. This is probably the reason why our gears cannot move anymore. There is only a slight energy response coming from the core now.
So what's Choo Choo's excuse?
What about what's happening to her inside of that thing? The Deus system's bind on her should have worn off now.
I don't know, ask her.
Why aren't we getting any kind of response? You don't think we'd hurt her in that battle too?
Hey, calm down.
Yeah, seriously, man.
Have you not met Faye?
The sensors are picking up a response from alive from Finzil. It's exactly because of the fact that I know him that I'm trying to calm him down. It is probably Ellie, so do not worry. I believe she is okay.
Cheetah is many things, but he still tries to be a mentor to Faye. Ellie, can you hear me, Ellie? Deus is no longer active. It's all over now. So come out of there. Show me your face. Ellie! Ellie!
What's happening?
Doc, what's going on? What's wrong?
That does not look good.
I am now detecting a tremendous amount of energy coming from within.
No, you think?
It seems as if it's something that was sealed up until now. It's suddenly been freed and it's growing enormously.
We have a new winner of the Captain Obvious Award.
The wave existence.
Look, you asked me what was happening, and I'm telling you what's happening. Jeez.
Maybe something I couldn't tell with my own eyes, though?
Gotta be it. The wave existence was just freed from its cage of fleshly existence in Zohar.
But you asked him!
It's probably attempting to return to the higher dimension that it originally came from.
There's just no pleasing you people, is there? Which means this is the after effect of the dimensional shift.
I mean, I'm usually one to shit on Shitan, but come on, you did ask him this time.
Yeah,
come on.
Again.
Is it like a shockwave that is induced by the dimensional... It's like a shockwave that is induced by the dimensional displacement. But so much energy? This much energy is unleashed here now.
Yeah, one last fuck you from Deus. It's so much energy unleashed, but what will happen, Doc? Tell us!
Okay, then this planet will be annihilated.
Oh no
crud.
pressure, I guess.
These numbers indicate that it has more than enough energy to take out a whole planet. What do you mean?
What do you
The
mean?
whole planet, Choo Choo.
You can't be serious.
Hey, sure. You are all a bunch of ingrates.
We all fought so hard, only to see this happen?
Isn't there anything we can do? There's got to be a better way.
Hit it harder!
Perfect.
Unfortunately, there is nothing we can do.
To be fair, yeah.
Almost all machinery, including our gears, are out of commission due to Zohar having been shut down. This time, there is nothing we can do. To put it to you straight, This is the end for us.
Dun, dun, dun.
This is freaking stupid. How the hell could it all end like this?
Richard, no time to be self-aware.
What were we all fighting for up to now?
Wait,
The vibrations are
I
intensifying.
forgot about this.
Hold on a sec.
Sorry.
No, these vibrations are different. Hold on. Are you telling me that I'm not translating Chrono Cross right now? Like, it is doesn't miss out a little bit. Go on.
Also, it's fine. I left the window.
Deus is rising.
What is it this time? Deus is releasing its remaining energy and is beginning to accelerate.
Why does Deus want to destroy us so
machine
much?
is ascending.
If it continues to accelerate at this rate, fuck it.
You don't think
Think what?
that it's Ellie? Ellie is moving Deus.
Oh shit. Are you sure?
I'm sure of it. Ellie is trying to save us by moving Deus away from our planet. She's going to sacrifice herself.
She's doing it again?
Can't we do anything? We can't just sit here and watch this happen, can we?
Well, you try and move the mech then.
Yeah, you are kind of being forced to sit
Wait,
here and.
there is still something I can do.
What is it, Faye?
Chucha, you can move.
My
Yeah.
gear still works.
I'm kind of weak, so I'm kind of powerless
the power
against this
source
thing.
for your gears, the only gear that now remains active is mine. Just like Deus, my gear and I are made contact with Zohar. We are the only one who can move now. I'm
Look at
going
me.
to go save Ellie. To be fair,
So-
Chuchu cannot ascend.
Oh yeah, right. That is absurd. Even if you were able to catch up to Deus, you will not have enough energy to make it back.
Even so, I still must go. Ellie's taking the whole burden upon herself. If anything happens to her, I want to be there with her.
We're just cheerleaders now?
Hey, just wait a minute. You know I'm not gonna stand by and let you commit double suicide, if that's what you're planning.
Bart,
You've come too far ever since I shot you out of the sky. You better come back alive, you hear?
He's got all
Promise
the
me.
tact of a rock.
Promise me that you will come back. Then I'll let you go.
thanks, Bart. I promise.
Now kiss.
Promise you that I will return with Ellie.
You better.
I think Faye
Yeah, of
as somebody
course.
else.
Alright, then get going!
But
Cheetan,
buts.
no buts. Let's let him go, Cheetan. At this point, Faye's the only one that'll be able to bring Ellie back. The script says so. There's nothing we can say or do about it.
you are right. Faye, keep your promise.
So we're just gonna stand here then. Wonderful.
No matter what.
Faye, Ellie,
Sitting in a tree.
Both of you.
K-I-S-S-I-N-G.
Sitting in a gear.
First
come back
comes
home.
love.
I'll keep that phrase in mind, Shiri.
We'll be waiting for Choo-Choo.
I appreciate this. Bart, and the rest of you.
Oh, so I got a rest of us right now.
I had better get going out, but don't worry, I will be back soon. I guess this will be the last journey you and I make together. I'm counting on you, partner.
Yeah,
whatever you say,
imagine the game's
man.
advertising. Imagine the game's advertising doing that. Beat Faye, Ellie, and the rest of them in Xenogears.
Meet Cloud, Tifa, and everyone else.
Well, Dubs, you usually
Meet
forget
Sora,
names.
Donald, and Goofy.
Well,
And
Dubs, you
everyone
usually
else.
forget. Well, Dubs, you usually forget names, so you usually use that expression yourself.
Exactly.
Well, I meant it in a sense of, yeah, these two are the most important. The rest, it's stuff.
Ellie!
Ellie.
Ellie, are you okay?
Deus, it's not over yet.
Oh, yeah, I mean, we're just barely halfway through the part.
This time it's his protagonist pulling the liquid move.
What's this only
and now
be like?
things are about to get
Shit, a black
weird.
hole.
Well, of course they are.
Oh,
We're headed.
Oh, crap, not the flashing again.
Oh, it's okay. I saw this in a from Jim. You're supposed to shoot at the black hole.
What?
Don't you remember that episode that I showed you over from Jim where he
Yeah.
shoots the black?
Yeah.
All right, pay attention because now Faye is gonna have, believe it or not, a philosophy debate.
Oh, wonderful.
Also while being naked.
Ah.
Where am I?
Boy, this
Also,
is
where are my
awkward.
clothes? That's Ellie. This must mean that I'm inside of Deus.
Oh my god, Ellie's become a star
That's
child.
you, Pedro.
Inside myself, no clothes are allowed, Faye. Your actual body is but a physical object. It has merely been absorbed into Deus' outer shell. Only your consciousness is here.
Oh god, this is like Final Fantasy VII.
Of course, the girl you perceive in front of you is not the true being. Your consciousness is merely creating her image.
You are all video game characters.
The wave existence. No, that's not you. Who are you?
You can now disappear from the game.
It can be. Is that you, Krelian? That's right, isn't it? Krelian, it was you who did this to Ellie.
I kind of forgot about
Yes, it was I. The path of Sephiroth has been connected. No one can stop God from returning to this world now.
Don't worry, Pedro. Just keep it more calm. There's a reason for it.
Oh, okay. So what have you come here for, Lacan?
This is my OC, Sephiroth.
I came here to take the person I love back with me, so set Ellie free. The Deus
forgot
system
to
has been
say
destroyed.
please.
It's all over now. So instead I ask you, what are you hoping to achieve now?
I am when all things started. The place where all things were one. I am going to return there.
Yeah, but don't try and kill us in the process.
What place?
Before the beginning of the universe, in the undulating waves of the higher dimension, all things were one. It was the waves spilling out from there that created this four-dimensional universe of ours.
So that's what four-dimensional chess is all about.
Humankind and the souls of humankind that were born from there and the merely leftovers of those spilled waves. So, yeah.
You're going back there? Is that what you desired?
Lacan, why such reluctance to become one with the god? What attachment could you possibly have to this wretched old world? We've gone through this. What meaning can be found in living out such a short existence? Hurting others, hurting yourself, grinding one another? Of course. Life is terrible, and therefore there's no point in living. Of course, it's square soft all over. 101. Why everything we could ever desire is here? No need to be troubled by the need for love, for this place is filled with the love of God. Seriously,
This is a variation. Hold on. This is a variation, but hello. I have not lost hope in humans as much as you have, Krelian. Someday humankind will come to understand one another. I sincerely believe that.
Anyone laughs getting punched.
How can you be so sure? Humans will never come to understand each other. You say that she is the person you love, but can you say that you even truly understand each other? All humans do is place themselves at a comfortable distance from each other and call that mutual understanding, spiritual unity, or true love. But it's all actually a comfortable distance. Like it's just social distancing, dude. It's nothing like.
Yeah, like we have to do this to fight the virus.
Men cannot associate with others without first deceiving themselves. That is the way that they were created.
But one being's ego can determine everyone's fate.
Damn straight.
People have the right to choose their own destiny. That is why humans have free will.
And you're
Free
just a
will.
floating head now.
And what if that will itself was predetermined? What then? Oh, what folly. Humans are just primitive life forms that have no such things as free will.
Oh, we're going here. I see.
Oh,
Mankind has merely been allowed to live in an imperfect state, as is, as will be. It is for this very reason, because humans have this wretched will or whatnot, that humans must experience sadness and loss.
you know, all I'm hearing is
Are you sure this is that fake god from Star Trek V?
For someone to gain something means another must lose it. It is impossible to make humankind share limited things and affections. So I came to the conclusion that everything must be reverted back to where it all began. To go back to when all was one. Waves and nothing else. It is not my human's ego. It is the will of the waves, the will of God.
oh yeah, you sound completely smart and sane that way, Krell.
Well, that's alright too. We don't have to be perfect. Actually, being imperfect makes mankind live by helping each other. That's what being human is. That's mutual understanding. That's unity and love. I'm glad. No, I'm proud to be human. Ellie plays the future, tomorrow, in our hands, based on our choice. And she's working to keep Deus far from our planet. She's also trying to heal your heart. You who wants to journey all alone to be with God. Can't you understand Ellie's feelings? Do you have to become one with God before you're able to comprehend all of this?
What are these feelings you speak of?
I understand. I know her feelings as if they were my own. Yes, she and I are one. We don't need God's help.
Well then, prove it to me. Show me this power of humans. Show me this love that they can make you independent of God.
So, as a sort of a thank you as well, Krelian decides to be cheeky and give you a gift of sorts.
Close.
What, your clothes back?
No.
Have a Siri.
The original form of Miang, the Ouroboros, the serpent.
Oh no, it's that bad episode of Red Dwarf.
It's a common term, Lives.
Huh. So Miang kind of became a non-entity in the end.
Remember, she wasn't to begin with.
She was never real.
I don't know. I feel like it takes away some of the satisfaction of finally getting to kick her ass.
On the plus side, I can tell you that this fight is basically like the final Sephiroth 1 in Final Fantasy VII. It's not scripted, thankfully. You still have to win on your own, but the Xenogears is so busted and you're fully healed before it with fuel and everything that, again, you have to really try to lose this one.
It's like how the game pretty much gives you Omni Slash to end Sephiroth in
But
7.
still actually ask you to actually fight instead of, just being a scripted cutscene.
See, here's the thing. It's like yourself said, Theo. Yeah, it does have the addition, the fact that it's a debate between him and.
Okay, sorry. The variation that I said is that normally this kind of there's the move also from before that, from the beginning of the game, Kishin. Normally the speech will be about the villain wanting to destroy the world or the universe in order to put back everything where it was. What Krelian wants to do is that he himself just wants to be reunited with God at the center of the universe and that, but otherwise just wants to leave everyone alone. The fact that Deus is exploding was just a thing that was happening. He did not actually do that intentionally.
Even still, though, he still goes through the speech about how life is terrible because there's pain and suffering and blah blah blah. So why bother living and shit and blah blah blah.
Again, considering how the themes of the game have all being about, the creation, enslavement, rejection of God, what it means to be a human and everything. This was kind of inevitable.
I at the very least appreciate that it actually does make sense to have this debate in this game, unlike with Final Fantasy IX, where this thing comes the fuck out of nowhere and has nothing to do with anything.
Like,
don't get me wrong. I love Final Fantasy.
Not to mention that Richard decided for that particular fight to actually make a direct quote to Star Wars for some reason.
Fair tale. Honestly, it's not out of place in Final Fantasy to have that anyway. So I'm okay.
For 9 is kind of just as much out of place as Necron himself is.
yeah.
This way too. If that entire sequence is out of place anyway, what's a bit more out of place? Len's going to harm at this point. So, no. But I love Final Fantasy IX, but the whole Necron thing just came out of nowhere and didn't really need to be there.
Oh, that's it.
Yep, like you said, this is a very easy fight.
I assume we're gonna have a lot of more story later on, so I guess I'll bring this. I guess I'll bring up.
Yeah, don't worry.
Well,
You can also mention in the final thoughts anyway. Ellie.
I'm sleeping. Shut up.
She's asleep.
Ellie, stop being a star child.
And in case you're,
She had her clothes for a split
Wait,
second.
hold on. She had her clothes for a split second. Why did she strip off again?
Hold on.
Hey.
Is they're gonna have sex now? I guess.
And in case you're wondering, yes, YouTube had a nasty tendency of, copyright destroy videos early in its years because it mistook this for actual nudity.
It was Krelian. Krelian released me.
Just
Oh,
like
kinda.
that. How nice after all the terrible, terrible stuff he has done.
Give me a second. Krelian?
Yes, I came to understand after becoming one with Krelian.
Ew.
It was a horrible experience, actually.
No,
not so
don't
bad.
say that, please.
No.
His heart was so full of sadness. That is why he had desired for he and I to become one with God.
I don't give a shit
Screw
about
him
his
still
Remember-
after everything he did to us.
Remember, Krelian was still obsessed with Sophia.
Yeah.
Because that would be the return to the beginning of everything. He told me
He told me that he was sad.
Also,
like I said-
don't worry, John. I will mention also this as the credits roll.
Oh boy.
you should be with him. That is what he said. You see, he already knew.
That was
Then
fast.
why did he do all this?
Again, I still blame Ronnie and Lacan for not actually, doing something.
Okay,
and
look.
helping.
Okay, look. To be fair, Ronnie and Lacan. Well, okay. Lacan has no excuse. Ronnie at least had the reasoning that he had to try and get stuff fixed, so I can get him being busy. Lacan, as we know, yeah, he's a screw up who, well, he kind of went off to do his own stuff.
He had no choice but to go forward. Even if it meant he lost all feelings, lost everything that was human.
Had plenty of choice, the wanker.
Crap.
He didn't believe in Detroit hard enough.
Oh God, Ellie, please don't make this any worse.
By the way, I love him, not you, so bye.
Oh God, no. I have some faith they wouldn't do that.
For all humankind's sake, there was no going back. Even looking back held too many memories.
Yeah, well, that'll be the ultimate.
That's
fuck
all
you in my
fine
case.
and well.
Ellie cooks him.
I mean, the
Don't
story
worry,
is already
no
built.
NTR for these beats.
And he would have just wanted to go back, even though he couldn't.
You know what? That doesn't change the fact that I want to kick his ass.
All he wanted was a hug from a woman. He got that, that's all he needed, now he's gone.
We should play Elden Ring.
Yep.
Wow, look at this
No,
maidenless
fucking
behavior for
forgive me.
Krellian.
No.
So please forgive him.
No.
Krellian loved people more than anyone else.
He
There's a-
mutated
showing it.
so many people across the entire
I want
earth.
to hear this end.
I somehow knew it all along. I just
hold
knew it
your
was really
judgment.
that kind of person.
You say that through gritted teeth, Faye.
I just really discreet it.
I am so sorry. Please forgive me. I was wrong.
So
Oh,
he turned to
that
Dr.
was
Wiley.
a sudden backtrack. Why did you say all that then?
No, I think she's referring to something else.
Please forgive me. It was I who switched your toothbrush.
I thought sacrificing myself in order to save others was the right thing to do.
Now, Shiro, it's all well and good.
But it wasn't.
Because we fixed it.
But my actions only brought sadness to the people I left behind.
Anyway, again, I appreciate the fact that they're trying to make Ellie more, both Ellie and Faye, rather than being revengeful, more, potentially forgiving, but yeah.
No, I'm sorry. Again, okay, here's my problem. One, we don't get the satisfaction of defeating Myung because she pretty much is a non-entity, despite all the sadistic glee she took in doing all of her stuff, and we don't even get to stick it to Krellian either.
Again, don't worry, Joe, I'll sum up later. Go on, Shiro.
Alright.
As long as I still live within you, my life is not just mine alone.
Sure.
Ellie, that isn't wrong. To sacrifice yourself for others is a noble thing. Even if it were to benefit yourself, it's no problem. There will always be a person healed, one or the other. Love gains its original shine only when there's an interrelationship between the giver and the receiver. It is incomplete when one of the others is missing. The two are one.
Well, I mean...
It was you, Ellie, who taught me that. I believe that is what it means to be human. I can now understand the true importance of it. I don't know if it's the right thing and the right answer or not, but we have a lot of time to think about it. What Krellian himself was looking for all along, we will find the answer to it all ourselves.
Preferably
Yeah, you got
alive
about
rather than
13
dead.
minutes.
Thank you, Faye.
Wasn't the ellipses?
Ultimate Warrior comic. Ellie. Alright, time for the last anime FMV with voice acting.
Oh boy. This game's quality voice
I
acting.
actually really love the music that it's used for this sequence. Very trippy as well. Don't worry also about the Unity, they basically do some Austin Power censorship.
Oh, yeah.
I thought you were going to do the Steam.
So no rays of light. Also, if you see any typos or potential weird sentencing, remember the dialogue is still the way it was translated by Richard. I just put the subtitles there to reflect the dialogue I mentioned.
So, how are we going to get back home?
It's the point of contact with our world.
There you go.
But the dimensional shift has already begun. Will we make it in time?
We have about as much chance of that as syncing our dialogue properly with
Also,
our
the bloom.
If we're together, I can.
We can outrun anything.
Okay, I actually was wrong. There is actual shine of light, so to the censorship, I forgot.
You say run.
Being blocked out.
And yes, we're running the spiral stair from the beginning, from the opening of Kingdom Hearts 2. Yeah.
My sanctuary.
That explains a lot, actually.
God damn it.
Oh, well.
Seriously, Ellie, you can't run down the stairs?
Actually, up.
You know what? It just figures that's how we would end the game.
Alright,
with Faye screaming Ellie's name. But
And remember, he's voiced by the guy who portrayed apparently Leonardo in the live-action TMNT movies.
although, let's be honest, they're not gonna kill Faye and Ellie. That would
No,
just be...
because they get rescued by Krelian, and now it's time for the payoff of the get. Pay attention to how Krelian actually sounds like.
Alright.
You. There's no time. This place.
Yeah, it's Cam Clark.
I was expecting it.
There is no more God.
No, yes, it sounds like Cam Clark is half
so
asleep.
bored.
Yeah, he sounded more invested in Warriors of the Wind than he does in this.
Krelian, you aren't going, are you?
No, I'd be drawn and quartered for all the crap I've done if I
So
came
get
back
this,
with you.
Dej. One Leonardo is interacting with another.
I've committed so many sins that any attempt at living like a human.
Yeah, can I please?
Oh
get
yeah,
these
you
lines
sound
out
like
of the
you
way? I
care
wanna
so
go to
much
bed.
about that, Krellian.
It's more of a case, but ever since with merging with the Wave of Existence, Krelian is kinda at this epiphany, and the only reasoning that he wants is to warp exile. Again, elaborate more for the credits.
So this is the first time he's like had audio dialogue in
Yes,
this game. I get the feeling he might have read these on his lunch break for another job in that.
Potentially.
Yeah.
He was doing Metal Gear Solid around the same time, mind you.
Oh,
Yep.
and he hammed it up in that game.
But regardless, I cannot go.
I have to instead go and fight a
Can you at
half-naked
least-
man on top of a tank.
Go to walk
Can you at least sync your words up properly, man?
Again, this was a problem from the beginning, Waves.
upon my return.
I'm pretty sure there were anime dubs that had better lip syncing.
Yes,
than this, even around the
again,
time.
it was more of a case of Square not knowing what to do properly voice acting. My planet needs me.
Okay,
Must
but why
recover
are the
all the energy
subtitles a lot
illegally.
better than most modern games, though?
Oh, Tio actually edited in those subtitles.
And those
Yeah.
subtitles were
Oh.
by Teo, actually.
Actually,
And he probably did that using Movie Maker, so make of that what you will.
I envy you.
Like I said, well, I actually never mentioned that much. Before actually joining this group, I actually tried to do some sub videos, so I have a bit of an experience in putting the timing. Alright, and now it's time to see if Ellie and Faye actually managed to get back on Earth. But
Yeah,
in
how
the
did he get there?
Deus manages to explode thankfully outside of the planet, meaning that the planet and humanity are saved.
And
Aside from
Krellian,
some debris that's going to hit some random poor
No,
bugger
actually,
on the
no,
ground.
Shira, nothing of the
and
sort.
Krellian, I guess, just faffs off into space.
I just
Well,
hope
again,
satellites aren't
he
a thing at
returns
this
to
point.
he basically exiles to the wave existent dimension. But again, I'll explain more after the credits.
No, he actually just fell in a black hole.
Yeah.
Whoa,
Really?
that's Chitan's voice.
Yeah.
It's not as intellectual as I thought it would be.
These random guys also voiced by Cam Clark.
It's apparently clear that the localization of this, random job, the localization of this game was rushed as fuck, so they couldn't even bother to do proper casting, probably.
Hold on.
He promised us he would.
I know it.
At least I kind of like
Yeah,
what they did with
Bart's
Bart's voice
worse.
actor. And yeah, Adult Emeralda shows up here regardless of what you do.
So I guess that would be awkward if you didn't do that side quest.
You'd be like, who the fuck is that?
And what have you done with Emeralda? What have you done with my daughter?
Yeah, I can see why some people thought this
Unholy
character is really
Eldritch
out of
noises.
place. You okay? It sounded like it's about to orgasm.
Oh, the sun rose with that.
Emeralda.
Yes, because we cleared the clouds.
Yay, my parents
Hey,
are
Rico,
dead.
you're there.
Rico looks so different.
Wait. Margie, what are you doing
Yeah.
here?
Remember, I guess this probably made in mind while she was still considered as a playable character.
Oops. So she teleported.
And
Emeralda's in her adult
But yeah, again, out of all of the odds, despite the not the blatant, but all the suffering and cynicism of the game, we still end on this very happy note, actually, with what else? A ballad, which was super common all the time. I will put the text as the, in the description for what it means, but yeah, that is Xenogears.
Is there an after credit scene?
Not sorta. It's more of a tease of what this game truly was in the chronology. But I really like also this song, even if it was another case where like everyone and their mother was doing it in their products. So it really feels like a time capsule. But I was asked the final thoughts in the next part because again the part is too long. So let me do two things. First, let me conclude, let me actually talk about Krellian first because it is a can of worms. On paper, the idea behind it is that it's supposed to be parallel what happens to a character in Final Fantasy IV, for which Tetsuya Takahashi worked on. With that game, a character, I will not spoil, for the sake of those who still don't know about the story, wax villainous for the game as kind of a redemption kind of moment in idea of realization because was sort of under some kind of mind control basically, and at the end of the game decides that in order to repent decides to go into a sort of exile in order to not damage to atone while not damaging the people on the planet. You can tell that they were trying to clearly parallel this. But it also kind of shows that what I mentioned a couple of parts ago, that Krellian is kind of a pet character for the writing team because holy shit, there's a lot to take in with his actions. But I think it's best quoted by the Dark Heat at the last page of one of the last pages of his run. And so Krellian, runner for biggest monster in the entire game, not only evades ever having to pay for being responsible for the death of millions and enough crimes committed against humanity to make Umbrella Inc. executive blush, but he gets exactly what he wants in the end too. What a fucking tosser.
So wait.
What a Chad.
Wait, hold on. Dark Kid, is that
the person that I kept mentioning, a guy who does text LPs. Again, if you can put a link in the description. I mentioned in the first part that I was basing myself also partially on his run. I don't think it's for everyone because being a product of the mid-2000s, basically, it has a couple of parts of it that contain some very outdated terms, if you know what I mean. But it did some minor cleanup, and I do believe as a whole, the run is actually a good time.
I'll admit, I do feel like there is still a niche, and there is still a place for text reviews. I mean,
he was actually he's still actually going to this very day. The most recent stuff that he was trying to do was one of the original Parasite Eve. Sadly, he had to stop it because of the real-life events. Essentially, people started arresting him because people on Twitter are that kind of assholes. But let me instead mention, go full circle and mention the end of our story that I talked about Takahashi in part 0. So, after what happened with this game, because of the different reasons, Final Fantasy Spirits Within being the huge black hole that it was, and Final Fantasy VIII draining away staff and money from the project, despite the fact that it had been going for a long while, actually. Square was essentially doing everything they could to not make this project work the way Takahashi wanted. Again, giving newbies, giving unlimited kind of budget, and stuffing away people, allowing the localization team in America to do whatever the fuck they want, leaving poor Richard to collapse on his couch, and I probably think he's going asleep at this point, thankfully. But the only generous thing that I can give to them is the fact that they allowed enough time to pass to actually give it a chance. But after a while, they decide to just say, no, you have to finish the game at this point, which in a sense I kind of understand. You still have to commit to actually finish properly the product at some point. But that's literally it. Everything else felt like they wanted to sabotage. So Takashi wasn't exactly happy with that, as you can imagine. I really recommend you also to check the song. I forgot the title, but I'll actually use the lyrics in the description so you can actually find it.
I swear, if this ends up ending on just a scene of an empty valley, then this really will have been the prototype for Final Fantasy VII.
And there you go, a shot of the Persona system, the mother of all mankind, with the world now on its way to finally, after all this fucking time, finally healing and give these admittedly artificial humans, but still humans, a fucking chance.
Oh my god, it is like the after credits scene for 7.
And this was supposed to be the episode 5 out of 6. Let me just explain quickly. Episode 1 was supposed to be about 15,000 years ago, the war against humanity. And no, it's not even Xenosaga, Edge. Don't worry about that.
No.
Episode 2 was about 10,000 years ago, the rise of early mankind and the story about Abel and Ellie against Emperor Cain. Episode 3 was about Zebo in Civilization, and about Dr. Kim and his assistant nurse Ellie. Episode 4 was about the war between Shevat and Solaris, which we see the story about Lacan and Sophia. This is episode 5, and episode 6 would have been the future, essentially exploring what would happen, towards after Deus is finally defeated and mankind can, finally, live in peace, on this planet. Takashi never elaborated on what the future of this could have been. It was highly implied that it was going to be a sort of a reunion with the original human arriving to check on the colony and seeing what happened. And that would have been a bit interesting, to see potentially a conflict about, segregation and saying, oh, you're not real humans, but, in reality, they actually still had the spirit because the personal system did allow to create humans, not clones or, mindless husks, but actual humans.
In regards to, what Square did to Takashi was crap. I do wonder, though, was this a bit of a similar case to, like, The Thief and the Cobbler, where arguably production under Takahashi was becoming strained itself or whatnot by the time Square decided to do stuff in?
Not necessarily, but you have to remember what I also said. In order to have found this kind of ambitious project for an original IP, Square essentially put on the slaughter a bunch of the very newbie developers who had no real experience and were just attached to do this kind of thing. Again, sure, you can argue that, towards the end of a project, or at least halfway through, there was a bit of a panic because they actually had no idea, how to properly, structure this kind of thing. But what were they expecting? Like with that kind of premise, if you know that this lead development director is actually wanting to do this ambition, at least have the decency to put some key veterans to actually potentially coordinate things up. But the closest we got was Sakaguchi and the other producer that I mentioned at the beginning, which were just producers, as in people who funded the project in this very case. So.
And then Richard's like, the end.
Richard, you need to start on Chrono Cross tomorrow.
I would just quit.
Again, like we mentioned in the interview in Part Zero, the guy was even afraid he was going to get fired for this. But no, instead Square actually, again, Pedro put it in a way of more exploiting his work, but I also want to believe it was more of a case of rewarding his actual commitment.
No. Basically, he left Square after Dragon Quest VIII in 2005. He went to Blizzard, and then he went to Level 5. That's basically his career.
I wonder, because he mentioned that he did work on 11. I wonder if it was his idea to make Shantotto speak in rhymes, because I don't think she actually does that in the Japanese version. But that's a story for another time. So what happened? Like I said, Takashi was kind of pissed, and again, for ostensibly at least good reason. Nowadays, I think he has kind of buried the hatchet a bit at the very least, but he still, doesn't really has collaborated with Square as far as I know. But so what he decided to do? Take the other people of the team that they wanted to join him and pull a Futurama and said, fine, we will make our own development team with Blackjack and Hookers, and thus founded Monolith, a company that still needed to work. It just so happens that at the time, the then president CEO of Namco, which I forgot who he was kind of impressed by the work that Takashi did with this game. And he had the mentality that going through the PS2 and the GameCube era, he believed that Namco was in need of actually boosting up the range of its own IPs, and actually properly showcase them also to the West. This is why we got stuff like Tales of Symphonia on the GameCube, by the way. So he essentially contracted Monolith to develop a series of games for them. You might have known some of the minor ones done by sort of the B division of them. Eventually became to be, like, say, the Baten Kaitos titles and the Super Robot War Saga, along with some other minor stuff along the way. But the big juicy bit was, of course, the Xenosaga trilogy on the PS2, which sadly also had its own travel development cycle. Essentially, Takashi wanted to do this kind of thing again, just with a new type of setting and characters, but still mixing against some of these other themes, mixing sci-fi with religion, what really means to be a human, and so on. And while being successful on its own, and it still gets referenced to this day by Namco, Xenosaga sadly also had this development cycle of being dragged a bit. It was sadly almost never localized in Europe. We only got, I think, episode 2 out of all 3 of them, and it was heavily censored because, yes, fucked up stuff still happens in Xenosaga, believe me. But it still, became ingrained in the heart of people. Sadly, these days, like I mentioned, Katsuya Arada mentioned that the current Namco doesn't really see a profit potentially making a remastered version of that trilogy. But I do believe, for the sake of game preservation, they need to be released on some kind of fashion. But I'm digressing.
But, can I add to that?
Go on.
Considering how popular Xenogears has gotten over the years, you'd think that they would try to capitalize on that.
Well, that's up to Square, mind you. But
Gears, Saga.
Well, they've been doing by having characters from Xenosaga show up in a shit ton of crossovers, even with stuff that didn't really involve Namco to begin with.
What's her face?
Cosmos. She's not technically one of the main characters, but she's definitely one of the more popular ones. The
mascot.
Also, to be fair, that's not all companies always do what you think would be common sense at the time.
But anyway, let me conclude quickly. Towards the end of the PS2 GameCube era and potentially start of the PS3, the Namco president has shifted, if I recall correctly, and the new one was not as much of a sympathizer for Takashi and his team. he did not fire them, but Takashi understood that something needed to be done, otherwise Monolith would not have much of a living space anymore. So he decided to rescind the contract, not in the sense of quitting the company entirely, but had Monolith received the major ties that had with Namco. But it will still develop games for them. There were games for them later on, like the Project Growth Zone games, for example, recently. But just so happened, out of, again, lucky coincidence, he did. And he did find a new home in Nintendo. The second Batten Kaitos game had been published by Nintendo, now Namco, and to this day I still have no idea who owns properly the IP because of this, because it's literally a split kind of thing. But it seems that someone at Nintendo actually thought that Takashi had something going on. So, round 3. Let's start another one with Xenoblade Chronicles. And you know the story. Japan really loved it. Europe really loved it. America had to fight tooth and nail to actually get it localized, but eventually got to love it. And that was what finally propelled the company and Takashi into more mainstream media, with Xenoblade stuff now being regarded on par with a lot of other important IPs for Nintendo. Just as we are recording this, Xenoblade 3 is about to be released in a couple of months, and it's also looking really good, impressive for how we look. You can argue that because also the Super Nintendo stuff got toned down a bit. The first Xenoblade still has a lot of fucked up elements, but Xenoblade 2 did tone them down considerably. Not necessarily to a fault, but it is noticeable. We have to see what Xenoblade 3 does. While those games are also still great on their own and an example for modernity and as such, I get the idea that a game like this Xenogears will probably never be done again for a combination of reasons. We might never see these kind of themes talk like this in this kind of manner.
If I may,
this really feels like a lightning in a bottle situation. Yes, Jova?
A lot of this with Xenogears, in a way, feels like, a kid who has his first time driving a car, or literally a first-time employee on this one. Like, they're all artistic and stuff, and you really feel good for them while they're doing it. That said, the ending product is not always the best, because obviously it's a start here. But man, this game as a whole really feels the most experimental and first-forward thing. And while don't get me wrong, Square as a whole definitely screwed over Takashi himself, I can't deny that even some of the ideas without the altering on his end kind of feel a bit iffy and lack the refinement that stuff like, say, Xenoblade Chronicles would get later on.
This leads me to the final bit before actually concluding this part. What has been the relationship between Square and this game over the years? For a long time, people thought that because of the circumstances behind it and the very rough departure between Takashi and his team and Square, that Square will just want to forget about it, bury it under the sand, and never believe it existed to begin with. But we started to see in recent times that it doesn't seem to be that way. The game actually got re-released on the PlayStation Network service for America in, for the PS3 and PSP, which is the version that I actually did play for this. Again, in hindsight, it probably should have actually emulated for the sake of, more accessibility. And more recently, we got Xenogears characters showing up in other places. The entire playable cast, mind you, plus, at least at the time we were recording this, Graf and Id, got to be recruitable as actual playable characters in specific events in Final Fantasy Brave Exvius, one of the many gachas that Square is actually employing. Again, and I mean the entire team, Chu Maria included, for example. They got the entire moveset and everything, and the sprite quality is actually greater than ever. Also, the reason why I use World of Final Fantasy music from before is because the actual Xenogears, as in the gear itself, is not even like Faye piloting, just the gear itself, show up as a secret bonus boss in World of Final Fantasy.
Yep.
I do believe I get the idea why they decided to do it there, and it's nice that they actually reference this game. But I do have my minor issues with what Final Fantasy references from stuff that is not strictly Final Fantasy. But I want to save it for the actual game.
Honestly, it's
for the
in a
purpose
way
of
kind
this,
of fitting.
Well, to be fair, Jova, the game acknowledges that the description of the actual, because once you defeat the Xenogears, it actually becomes like a summon, not a summon, sorry, one of the monsters that you can stack upon. The description basically just stated, yes, we understand that it's not really connected. We don't give a fuck, and we even got the original character designer to actually design and deal with it. So that's cute. So in a way, Square is still acknowledging the presence of the game, and considering how they've been doing with re-releases, I do believe it might be a question of when rather than if, when we see the game showing up again. But for the love of everything, this does not need a simple coat of paint like Legend of Mana did.
No, it needs more.
This needs, at the very least, something like the Saga Frontier remaster treatment. Implement the cut content, offer not necessarily a complete retranslation, but a more polished one. Call back Richard, really, if you have to, for the sake of authenticity, even though I'm not sure if they can do contractual potential reasons. But
I'm confident that a complete retranslation from the ground up would be the better way to go about that.
And as mentioned, again, polish away the flashing of light.
Not just that. There's quite a few other things. Like I do get.
Also, sorry, go on.
I do get that that's how I want it, but maybe we could be a little bit less edgy with the religion bashing here. I get it. That's part of it's part of the theme and part of the tone. But a lot of times it just feels needlessly over the top with how, no, all religions are bad and evil, and you should feel ashamed for having
actually
them.
not really, Jova, because at the end of the day, those specific claims got proven wrong because there is an equivalent of a deity. And everything. And it's not even treated as a tyrannical one or ruler or anything or something that needs to be despised. Again, the themes of the game are deconstruction, but also reconstruction, recontextualize the idea that it's more like what humans perceive of religion, that lead them astray rather than, the actual interaction with God.
That may be true in that regard, but as you have admitted, the game does take its time getting to that point where, until you get to that point, it just feels like it goes on and on with that sort of stuff. Now, I'll go more into this with my final thoughts, but if this game does get remade, I do feel like, in a way, it should maybe separate out a lot of the long soliloquies here and there that characters just make of stuff.
Honestly, Jova, this can easily, in terms of like that, it's also the way the game also is, programmed with the idea of big text and slow text scrolling with no options to change that. If it was more of a case, in recent times where the text is at least slightly smaller, and the text speed goes up. Trust me, a lot of these dialogues will last not as long as we have seen. But
no. Even with that, I do take that into mind. That I do feel like some scenes go on for a bit lengthy-wise, but we can discuss more of that later.
But we have gone long enough, so tune in instead for the next part, where, along for the other final thoughts, I will present some minor, technically, extras, which includes what the Dark Id calls Dr. Chita Uzuki, Xenogears' greatest asshole. Well, I will come with a better name for that, so see you for that.
See ya.
See ya.